Howdy guys, Attorney Walter Hnot. Now, just a quick update. This is going to be one of the bigger videos. I'm going to try and end this thing at 10 p.m., but you know, this is a bigger one. We're going to be going specifically through what was released on the 14th, which is the Social Security Administration's Equity Action Plan. Now, a lot of people I've been talking to have had mixed feelings about this. I as well have mixed feelings about this. And I think one of the big problems that we're starting to see is that there's a disconnect between essentially the Democratic Party's ideology of how they're going to fix fundamental problems in the United States when it comes to lifting people up. And one of the things I want to go ahead and say is that there are, in my opinion, some unconstitutional things in this. We'll touch on it, but keep an open mind throughout it because there are some really incredible things I want to check out with you and go through in detail. Let's start off. Oh, remember, please like, subscribe. The big thing, leave 5-star reviews. How to do that is in the little bio area below. Let's get right into this. This is the executive summary. I'm going to read it to you and then kind of give you an update with the details on it. All right, here we go. Social Security is the nation's largest federal program. So that's why I asked this whole question. Hey, is it the most woke agency in the United States? I would say probably the Immigration Department is, but bottom line is it's the largest federal program, serving as an insurance program and safety net for millions of people. Our vision is to provide income security for the diverse populations we serve, including those in underserved communities. Now, right there, underserved can mean a lot of things. And I think that's a really good term because there are communities that don't have internet, there are communities that don't have printers, etc. So I like that term. Let's keep rolling. People with disabilities, workers, and their families. Our intent is to serve all who are eligible for our programs. However, the design of our administrative system can pose barriers to people who have few resources and may need our programs the most. Cool, like it. To reduce barriers in our administrative system, we will increase collection of race and ethnicity data to determine whether our programs are equitably serving our applicants and beneficiaries, revise our policies and practices to expand options for delivery service, ensure equitable access to unrepresented claimants in the disability application process, decrease burdens for people who identify as gender diverse or transgender in the Social Security number card application process, and increase access to our research grant programs for historically Black colleges and universities, minority serving institutions, and procurement opportunities for small and disadvantaged businesses. All right. Oh, William Randall, thank you, good sir, for the donation. I really appreciate it. Also, I saw Shirley made a donation. Thank you as well. This is awesome, guys. I really do appreciate it because it takes so much money to make all this stuff happen. It's all, thank you. I really do appreciate it. Going into this thing, as you guys have heard me say when I did the quick little video before, the problem inherent with this is that it calls out races. And specifically, it goes right to Black races, right? The Black African-American race. And the problem I have with it is, A, it is not creating equal standing among the poor. Instead of saying we're going to raise the poor up, it's saying more specifically, we're going to look into historically Black colleges. We're going to look into races and ethnicity-based data to see how this all works and things like that. Now, the truth is you need the data. You got to get the data to go ahead and do an analysis because you have to look at what cultures here's the thing. Here's what they're admitting here. They're admitting that a race will have a particular culture that equates to a particular poverty. That's what they're admitting here. The problem with that whole idea is that when you call out a specific race for being, unable to produce historically or it's really about currently as much as another group, the problem you run into is you're basically saying that group, no matter what race they are, when you call them out, you're saying that group is less than the other groups. And I don't think that's accurate. Like I said in the other video, I think African Americans are getting the bad deal here. I think that basically at the end of the day, African Americans have been extremely successful in the United States. And, presidents, African American, senators, 2 Supreme Court justices. This is a lot going on here. So the bottom line is, I don't think I'm just going to say it, old politicians and old government officials, they don't understand race in America. They don't understand the modern approach to how race is coming. From my generation, they live in a closer to slavery, closer to racism that they grew up in. And in fact, many of them were. I mean, nobody would disagree with the identity of what some of the things President Biden said back in the day, which were holistically, just in total, very racist comments. Nobody would disagree that he made those. Nobody disagreed that he didn't believe those. And then, of course, there's this transition to now. And then there's always those people who are like, God, how could he say those things? And I'm always like, dude, shut up. None of these people really know. Like, you know, they're like pretending to be the most ethically amazing person now. Give me a break. Like, it's just, you know, people that think they're better than other people because they're just born later. That's not it. But I will tell you this, these individuals that are born later are more removed from the Holocaust, more removed from slavery, more removed from tragic, horrible things. And as a result of that, they have a better view on where things are going. And then we get into the pushed identity of this whole woke thing. It is my opinion that the major problem with this document, and I'll just get it right out there, is that at the end of the day, they should be focusing on the poor. You know, collect race data, collect, you know, ethnicity data. Go do it. You should absolutely go ahead. But it should be focused on not historically poor. It should be focused on currently poor. Because all you're doing with this whole collecting, you know, race data and ethnicity data within this field is you're admitting that you're trying to find some sort of like, you know, hack to the system of a culture in order to fix that culture. And I don't know if people have woken up to that or realized that yet. But the bottom line here is, I don't think everybody's really happy with what's been happening with racism and race-oriented identity issues over the past couple of years. It's gotten worse. So let's keep reading. Since 1987, there has been a huge decline in race and ethnicity data in our records. This makes it more difficult for us to monitor the fair treatment of people of color in our programs. So what is people of color? Like, I'm definitely, I mean, there's not much there, but there's some, right? Right. So what is that? I actually looked it up because I wasn't sure. As an attorney, I was like, what is a person of color? And it turns out that, so there's two dictionaries you look at. You look at Oxford, right? That's the one everybody uses. Then you look at Black's Law Dictionary. Black's Law Dictionary is like the dictionary for law. I mean, you can look at case law and stuff like that, but Black's Law Dictionary will usually cite to case law. And so, you know, basically, like if you look up Oxford and then you look up Black's Law Dictionary, all right, so here, we'll put it up real quick. I'll give you the exact thing. People of color definition, Oxford, right? Whatever this is supposed to be. So phrase people of color is, hold on, let me find the actual, here it is. Person of color now, let's see, a person who is not white. So the first thing I think about is, that's horrible because every white person comes from somebody genetically of color. So it's horrible. Then you look up Black's Law Dictionary, right, which is the actual legal dictionary. So here, let's go back to Google or DuckDuckGo or whatever you like to use. Here we go. Black's Law Dictionary, person of color. Here we go. I actually looked this up the other day because I was like, by common usage in America, this term in such phrases as colored persons, the colored race, colored men, and the like is used to designate, and I'm going to skip that word because people don't use it nowadays, or persons of African race, including all persons of mixed blood descended from, again, the word ancestry. So the bottom line is, kind of the thing here is they're saying basically, anybody that can, designate, African American race, all person mixed blood descended from African Americans, which is everybody. That's everybody. Everybody comes from Africa at some point. So one of the things I would like to see the Democratic Party get away from in their wokeism is persons of color. I don't think that's an appropriate phrase. I think they need to get rid of it. I think they need to just look at improving the lives, the meat and potatoes of the Democratic Party, of being a liberal, improving the lives of the poor. That's the whole thing. All right, let's keep reading through this thing real quick. All right. To determine whether administrative barriers disproportionately affect some groups more than others, we will increase the collection of the race and ethnicity of the people participating in our program. The process of applying for our programs and services was initially designed to be carried out primarily in person due to the difficulty and length of the Supplemental Security Income Program application. Yeah, it's like 24 pages. It's the 8000 BK. Then they made this little crappier version called the 8001 BK, which they gave to, basically these, caseworkers, social workers, so that they didn't have to do the full 8000 BK. 8001 BK is the mini version, but you still have to then fill out more information to get the rest of the 80. So it's just fill out the 8000 BK. Although we have more than 1,200 field offices across the country, people in rural areas and on Native American reservations may not have a field office nearby or may have limited transportation options to travel to a field office that's far away. Further, people who work in jobs that do not provide paid leave may lose earnings if they take time off to come to a field office. People of color and women are disproportionately likely to hold jobs that do not provide benefits such as paid leave. This adds a greater barrier to accessing our programs. To improve access to our programs and services, we are reducing the need for in-person visits through simplified online applications and expansion of online and telephone services. So the first thing I'm thinking of there is they don't have the metrics to even know if that's true. They're just making a generalized statement, right? They just said, we don't have the metrics, but we think it's like this. The next problem I see is that instead of them being like all poor people, all people with way too much student loans, all poor people who couldn't do this, it's the problem I have, and I get it. They should be collecting the race data. I get it. That's the federal government, should be doing this to understand what's going on. But once again, we're coming back to people of color and women are disproportionately likely to hold jobs that do not provide benefits such as paid leave. I don't have a job that, like, my job doesn't provide me with money if I leave, which is one of the things I have to work. Like, you see me, I'm working right now. I work every night, all night. It's miserable, but that's because I'm a younger person. Younger people do not have classical, job boosting features. Most jobs nowadays, for everybody, not, a person with color in their skin or not, they don't have jobs that provide the same pension plans, special time off boosts, all that stuff. I don't get any of that. All right. Claimants applying for disability, DI or SSI disability, must obtain and submit many documents, including medical evidence. Some claimants get attorneys or non-attorney representatives to assist with this process. However, representative fees are based on awarded back benefits. This is a distinct disincentive for representing SSI disability applicants in favor of DI applicants whose benefits are typically higher. Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. I've been telling you guys about that for a long time. Disability attorneys want to, work with SSDI people. Most of them won't touch the SSI people. We work with a ton of SSI people, and I'm grumbling all the time that I don't make enough money. This whole 6K limitation needs to be, 10K and go up every year. And this whole 25% needs to be 33%, just like every other attorney. I don't know why disability attorneys are literally third-class citizens in the legal field. I don't know. They need to fix that. There's evidence that although African-American people are more likely to have a disability, they are less likely to be approved for disability benefits than white people. Considering this, we will assess whether African-American claimants are less likely to have a representative than white claimants. Research whether claimants who have representatives are more likely to receive disability benefits. Reach out to claimants who do not have representatives to prepare them for the disability hearings and inform them of their right to representation, and work with professional associations of representatives to create incentives to increase their representation of disability program applicants. So the SSA is saying that they're going to try and help claimants more. But at the same time, the SSA is not allowed to provide legal advice to claimants, right? Because then that can get them sued, or somebody out there, at the agency sued as a result of what they said to somebody. They advised me of this, and then off we go. So this is a cool notion, but the people at the top know that they can't really go way out of their way to work with somebody. That person has to go and get legal representation to advise them legally how to handle their claim. That's how it works. That's why we have attorneys do it. So, and keep in mind, remember when I released that top 50 trick questions, top 200 most common hearing questions, nothing like that existed on the web. Didn't exist. That was a huge, big thing. So bottom line here is, I don't know to what extent they're going to try and do with that, but we'll go through it more as we get to the other section on it. This is just the executive summary. An additional administrative challenge is that our forms, application for Social Security card, provide for a sex designation to identify only as either male or female. Another challenge, this can pose burdens for people who identify as gender diverse or transgender. We also require people to provide legal or medical documentation to change their sex designation on our records. To reduce these administrative burdens, we will explore self-attestation to change a person's sex designation on our records without requiring legal or medical documentation. On the website already for the executives of the Social Security Administration, they'll say her, his, or how they designate based on their sexual orientation, like Kila Lakeisha Kazi's other lower versions of the commissioner. So, they're going full gender, awareness and all the different kinds that can exist. Like they're going full tilt on this. Finally, the share and dollar, which, is fine. It's just, you'll hear when I finish this executive summary, None of this is about increasing benefits or fixing the fact that the retirement trust fund is going to run out, or making sure that there's some sort of plan in place to boost the COLA when obviously people can't afford it. None of that is part of this executive action. So, like, the most important things that would fix the system, they ain't in here. Just a heads up. Finally, the share and dollar amount of research contracts and grants that go to historically Black colleges and universities and minority serving institutions is disproportionately low. We plan to expand our engagement with these institutions and increase opportunities to support research aligned with our DI and SSI programs and the diverse populations we serve. We also want to strengthen our ties and promote our contracting opportunities to small and disadvantaged businesses, which include women-owned small businesses, service-disabled, veteran-owned businesses, and small business contractors in historically underutilized business zones. We will hold ourselves accountable by reporting our progress to Congress, the Executive Office of the President, and external stakeholders advocating for the diverse population we serve. So, right off the bat, that's the executive summary. Over 50% of it, I disagree with how they're, coming at this thing. Let's continue. Summary of early accomplishments. To identify inequities in our program and services, we introduced methods to increase our data collection on race and ethnicity. On November 4th, 2021, we issued guidance to our frontline employees to encourage applicants to voluntarily provide race and ethnicity data during the Social Security number card application process. We also updated the instructions for the application for a Social Security card to encourage members of the public to provide voluntary responses to race and ethnicity questions. So here's kind of the thing. They're looking for a means to decipher how to rebalance things. And they're using race as basically a structured approach as opposed to how much they earn, how much they have. Now, they could say that there's a systemic racism going on in America as a result of basically whatever reasons, and that by having this data and showing that African Americans are less likely to get hired, African Americans are less likely to achieve, then they can somehow promote giving them more benefits or somehow creating, equity, which is bringing others up when there's some sort of equilibrium issue. We have begun identifying and addressing systemic barriers, which is going to piss off, of course, a significant amount of individuals, because the bottom line is a lot of people who paid into it are already getting very little. And this is going to then make those individuals who paid into it get even less. We have begun identifying, which is why people were calling me over the past couple of days about why they're so unhappy about this. We've begun identifying and addressing systemic barriers to program participation by conducting an extensive analysis of every question on the lengthy and complicated SSI application to determine which questions could be removed and revised. They're not going to remove that many. They're not. It's still going to be a really long application. It's because here's the thing. They have to go through all these different things financially that you might have that would make you ineligible to go ahead and get on this program. And remember, they're doing this to themselves. Nobody is stopping President Biden from winking at the House or the Senate to say, hey, get working on the SSI Restoration Act. Let's get this thing passed. Let's get these people having a $10,000 bank account option as opposed to a $2,000 limitation. So, like, when you hear this is all self-imposed. I mean, you could put it however you want, shenanigans. They could make this a heck of a lot better by allowing people to just have more. And then as a result of that, the things that they have to write on these forms are not as important, because an SSI person could have a bigger bank account. They could have, 2 cars, whatever. The bottom line is they're trying to reduce the application size. They're not going to be able to unless they just mass summarize. They could take all those little, do you have these things, financial things, and just make it one big yes or no question. Well, that's just a lie. You still have to write in what you have. Because if they don't make it straightforward enough, then somebody would be like, oh, you know what, I have key off accounts, Christmas accounts, but I didn't really see it on the form. I didn't understand it. So, and then boom, we get down the line, they're found disabled, and the SSA calls them and says, hey, we realized when we studied your account that you have all these other things that you didn't really go into on that SSI application. It was over the limit that you're supposed to have. And now we're taking away all your back pay because you're not eligible. That happened last week to somebody. Developing a new online tool targeted for release in March 2022. that receives requests to schedule appointments for people who want to file for SSI and other benefits, e.g. supplemental nutrition assistance programs. This online tool records the appointment request date as a person's protected filing date, commonly known as the date a person initially notifies us of their intent to apply for benefits. The protected filing date secures the person's SSI application filing date if they file within 60 days. That's a really good thing, because one of the big things that's a pain in the butt is just getting people to be filed. Attorneys are not really supposed to be the ones that have to file people. It became that, but we're not really the ones that are supposed to have to go out of our way to file the person. We're supposed to be the ones who build the claim, go to a hearing, submit motions, submit briefs, stuff like that. We're not supposed to be the ones that have to also file you, but it evolved to be that. Creating and running a national communication campaign from September through November of 2021 in support of the administration's effort to inform non-tax filers, including SSI beneficiaries, of their potential eligibility for child tax credit. Code for America, a non-government organization that identifies uses of technology to break down barriers and improve government services, estimates that our campaign generated 34,313 filed claims, of which 15,710 were found eligible. This amounted to $56 million in tax benefits and was the second highest number of referrals to getctc.org. That's awesome. Congratulations. That's a good thing. Working together with the Department of Labor and the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission to examine current and potential research on employment discrimination, one of the root causes of income inequality, and how employers can be held accountable. Sure, female discrimination occurs. I'm sure racial discrimination occurs. What I think the real problem here is, to be very straightforward about this whole situation, is that the people who own the businesses come closer to that era of separation, of segregation, where this person didn't talk to that person and that person didn't talk to that person. And as a result of that, you have this person maybe hiring more of these people and this person hiring more of these people. And, if somebody's like, no, that's the way it works, guys. That's the way they've been doing it, right? You go to some business, right? And, you have a white owner and there's a lot of white employees, right? And you think, what about all the tax benefits of hiring, non-white employees? Well, maybe they'll hire some, minority-based employees. Maybe they won't. Then you go to another business. It's a black-owned business, right? Female, African-American, she owns it. She goes ahead and she hires mostly African-American females to work with her. It's how it works. That's just the way it's working. But I'll say this, my generation, albeit my generation is very moronic. I got to be honest, guys. I don't know how, let me give you an example of what my generation is like, because you might be significantly older, but let me tell you what my generation is like. My generation will look at a Star Wars blaster. They'll create one. They'll innovate. They'll renovate. They'll make one, right? And then at the same time of them having this and going to, Comic-Cons and stuff like that with it, they'll then vote to abolish, to ban, to get rid of guns, even though the thing they created was literally with the purpose of defending themselves against some great imperial monster, right? But then they'll go vote to go ahead and remove guns. And I sit there and I just go, what happened? Did you miss the point of what you were watching on TV? Did you miss how the world works? Did you really need Ukraine to remind you? So that's, yeah. All right, let's go to the next one. Asking for public comments on how to streamline the continuing disability review CDR form and improve the form's readability to further reduce burden for beneficiaries. We're developing an online version of the CDR form. Yeah, all these forms to some degree need to be built into not just a fill-in PDF, but literally something where, they can, it's like the disability appeal process. It's a digital form that you can enter things into, modify them, change them, etc., and then submit it. All right. And remember, with CDRs, the world of, somebody's got to review it, and okay, so should a CDR occur? That world is ending. It's all going digital. You're on a timer. Am I going to trigger a CDR? A CDR is already set for you. You're on a timer. It's no longer a world of oh, I hope I don't get it. You're going to get one. You're going to get one. Continuing disability review. Engaging a diverse group of external stakeholders at the regional and national levels. What does that mean? Whenever I hear that language, and I've seen it on a lot of executive summaries, I get very, very worried. Let me read it again. Engaging a diverse group of external stakeholders at the regional and national levels. What that is called bringing in people who maybe should be there and maybe are there to manipulate the hell out of the system. Let's go through this, including tribal nations to reach people from underserved communities during the COVID-19 pandemic. And then they just stop. And then they have bullet points for that. But they don't go into these external stakeholders. And that is a big problem because that is a huge area where manipulation and fraud can occur. All right. We established partnerships with more than 3,000 community and faith-based organizations and recruited 650 field office employees to serve as vulnerable population liaisons. These field office liaisons receive referrals and process SSI applications from these organizations. We also promoted 100 of our field office employees to the newly created position of vulnerable populations experts to review quality, timeliness, and consistency of the applications received from these organizations. Our outreach efforts with these organizations helped us obtain 1,743 SSI applications that might not have been obtained otherwise. So they partnership with over 3,000 communities. They got 650 field offices. 100 people were promoted to this new title, and only 1,743 SSI applications came from it. Not super impressive numbers there on behalf of the SSA, but hey, they're beginning it. This is not a bad thing because the SSI group is a very. But remember, when you create all of this, at what extent are they giving out legal advice? To what degree are these SSI applicants expecting these people to assist them? What happens when the SSI applicants miss their deadlines for basically, appealing, pushing the claim forward? Do we just forgive them because they're poor? Maybe. That's not a bad idea to some degree. Next one, we meet with the advocate stakeholder work groups led by agency executives on a bi-monthly basis. We also meet with sub-work groups on a bi-weekly basis, all to develop evidence-based policy recommendations that we can pursue to address the needs of people facing barriers in accessing our services. That's good. Constant touch. They're constantly touching the issue. We use stakeholder input to adjust our policies and procedures and to expand our online telephone services so that people can conduct business with us without having to visit one of our field offices. Okay, now the first thing that goes to my brain, let me read it again to you, is this. We use stakeholder input to adjust our policies. I would like to know exactly who the stakeholders are. I think that's important. I want to know who's got a perfect, quick line directly to executives at the SSA. And procedures, and to expand our online and telephone services so that people can conduct business with us without having to visit one of our field offices. So here's the thing. More online services, that's awesome. But their phone system is already a wreck. It takes 45 minutes to an hour and a half just to get through with a lot of these local field offices. And it takes 2 minutes if you know what you're doing just to get through their, little chat thing, which you have to listen to at least one whole lineup of news that they want to give you before you can even press a button. So I think their phone needs a lot of work. All right, anyways, let's keep rolling. In fiscal year 2021, we released a change of address application to allow callers who properly verified their identity to change their address and their telephone number without needing to visit one of our field offices. That's cool. That's good. It's also ripe for fraudulent activities. But that's okay. We'll hopefully OIG will be able to handle that. I doubt they can, but hopefully they will. We are implementing our tribal consultation and call to action plan to strengthen tribal consultation, increase outreach efforts, and improve service delivery. Cool. And a lot of you guys may not know this, but the American Indians, significant amounts of them live in poverty, and significant amounts of them are on SSI. Hosting a national disability fund. In fact, all of these cultural groups that are to some degree natives, right? So Native Hawaiians, Native Americans, etc. They are in a significant way on SSI, living in poverty. So if you don't know that, go check it out. It's kind of a sad story. So maybe all of this will find ways to promote them to not get stuck on SSI if they have the capacity to be rehabilitated to go and work. So hopefully there will be more options in this related to that. Hosting a national disability forum with nearly 1,000 attendees in September 2021, which focuses on equity in SSA programs, hidden barriers, and included panelists from our stakeholder community. The panelists represented more diverse interests than prior forums. As a result of the feedback received during the forum, we will assess our medical evidence rules to adequately reflect a broader set of healthcare providers who serve people facing barriers in accessing healthcare, which means basically changing the listings, but they'll probably just make them harder. That's what happened with Commissioner Saul. That was even happening before Commissioner Saul. So that was a really cute way to put, bottom line is this, guys. It's just going to get harder and harder to be found disabled because they're just going to make the listing standards and the expectations for, severity for multiple impairments to limit your ability to work. They're just going to make it harder. Okay. Don't get fooled by any of this, jazz of, medical evidence rule. We will assess our medical evidence rules to adequately reflect a broader set of healthcare providers, right? Maybe including more than just traditional hospital, clinic, emergency room or doctor knowledge, but also third, non-Western medical treatment. We also consider revising the list of healthcare providers who qualify as acceptable medical sources. We'll see what happens with that. The SSA has a process for creating basically what they consider a proper medical source, and some individuals don't fit into it. Some tribal cultures have medical doctors that won't fit into it. So maybe they're changing this, which would be good because obviously different cultures require different medicine, even though America has very much so, kind of created like, this is our one standard, this is our medical system, this is what we're using. Here's the doctors we approve because they went to our medical schools, etc. Meeting with advocate groups representing the Asian American and Native American, Pacific Islander, Black, Hispanic, and elder communities. We developed and published our fiscal year. See, now right there, they could have said impoverished, poverty communities, right? They could have included some white people in there, but instead they threw them under the bus and said, we don't care. We don't care. We've done enough. We're going to turn a blind eye to you poor white people. Homeless, chronically homeless, poor white people, you're not part of it. That's not good. This is like, woke on steroids that went wrong. Once again, I'll read it again. Meeting with advocate groups representing the Asian American and Native American, Pacific Islander, Black, Hispanic, and elder communities. Could have included poverty. Could have included poor communities. We developed and published our fiscal year 2022-2023 language access plan on December 2, 2021 with relevant insights from these conversations. The language access plan aligns with our limited English proficiency policy and our strategic planning efforts for fiscal year 2022 and 2026. Issuing, I can hear Shadow in the background, or Sweetie whining. Issuing a temporary final rule for the musculoskeletal disorders listing to help address COVID-19 pandemic-related barriers that prevented people from timely access to healthcare. The rule temporarily changes the close proximity of time requirements for 4 months to 12 months to reflect a reasonable time frame for medical evidence showing the level of severity needed to meet a musculoskeletal disorder listing. That's smart, but at the same time, they need to open it more up in general. Like they are way too restrictive with musculoskeletal-based listings. They're way too restrictive with some of the mental-based listings and how they changed it. So, yeah. Let's keep reading. This temporary rule will remain in effect through the emergency pandemic period. We will continue to assess related information that will allow us to respond to public comment at the appropriate time. Okay, here's the next bullet point. Revising our in-kind support maintenance policy to increase the tolerance from $5 to $20. We use this tolerance to determine if an SSI recipient is paying an equal share of their household expenses and certain living arrangements. The revised policy reduces administrative burdens on SSI recipients because it limits the number of times that we redetermine their eligibility and benefit levels. It may also increase SSI applicants' eligibility for benefits or recipients' benefit amounts. I'll read it again. It may also increase SSI applicants' eligibility for benefits and recipient benefit amounts. This is very cute. I get what they're trying to do here. It's a very simple little math trick. It's not enough. Not enough. All right, now we're getting out of these bullet points, going to the next section. As an initial step to ensuring equitable service for unprecedented claimants in the disability application process, we are providing training to our judges to raise awareness of unconscious bias in the context of legal decision making. As a result of the training, we are looking at ways to improve services and bring awareness to our judges of equity issues in the disability application process. Because of the September 2021 National Disability Forum noted above, we are considering ways to encourage representation of disability program applicants, especially SSI disability applicants. For instance, we are evaluating whether the current maximum fee of $6,000 that the attorney and non-attorney representatives receive under the fee agreement process is enough. Obviously, it's not. It's never been enough. We should be at the same rates as VA. We should be, or 33%. We shouldn't have a 6K limitation. We should be treated as equals in the legal field. That's the reality. And if you raise that, there's more likelihood that people will actually represent SSI claimants. I represent a ton of them, but it's harder. They are more judgmental. They have very little understanding of time and how long it takes. There's a lot more aggression and hostility. There's a lot more lying. That's very common. The SSI applicants, significantly higher amount of lying that occurs. And the reasoning for that is that a lot of them have had to do things to survive. So they've learned certain tricks, not traditionally part of the Jedi code, to get through life. And so that is something that a lot of people don't want to deal with, disability attorneys, when it comes to the SSI group, is that they'll have claimants who they'll call. Then they'll say, okay, well, I can't get a hold of this person. Then you'll be in the hearing with them. They'll be like, oh, the attorney never called me. And that makes us furious and also creates, like they're saying here, this bias that makes attorneys not want to represent them. And we can hear Shadow growling at Sweetie. Next one, to increase gender equity and equality. In June 2021, we submitted a report to the White House Gender Policy Council, GPC. This report informed the government-wide strategy on gender equity and equality. In July and August 2021, we attended the first and second rounds of GPC interagency working groups, meetings centered on issues such as women's economic security and labor force participation, women and girls' education and leadership, gender-based violence, and women's health and rights. On February 3rd, 2022, we issued guidance to our field office employees on accepting documents with a non-binary sex designation, or X, for enumeration requests, original Social Security number card applications, replacement Social Security card applications, and updates to our NUMIDENT record, when evidentiary documents include non-binary sex designations, such as an X. Look, I know people on the right side, and keep in mind, I was just in New Jersey around a bunch of farmers, and the farmers, they don't believe in this whole, idea of something beyond male or female. And I don't really, from my perspective, if somebody wants to be known as something else, I don't really have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with saying to them, hey, you can be whatever you want. That's the whole point of America. America's freedom of speech. Be who you want. As long as you're not hurting somebody, be who you want. The wise speak only of. Thank you, good sir, for the $1.49 donation. I appreciate it. Love the Gandalf. Very cool. Little doggy. Excellent. So the thing I try to promote when it comes to this is, don't be offended by somebody who wants to be different than you. Just don't. I mean, you can expect somebody to be like you, but then you're just kind of turning into a Karen. And you don't always want to be that person. Like, look, and I live in Florida. Things are different in Florida. In Florida, we have people who are more akin to the Democrat-based policies, and then we have people who are more akin to the Republican-based policies. The Democrat-based policy people, they tend to live in HOAs, and there's 5 of them to every 1 Karen. That's right, 6 total on a line in an HOA, homeowners association. There's 5 of them to 1 Karen. And then you have the Republican types where they live in the country, or they won't deal with an HOA, because if they want to put a flag on their house, if they want to paint their house a certain color, they just do whatever they want. It is what it is. Okay. There's people who like to be controlled, and there's people who do not like to be controlled. And the people who like to be controlled live in more controlled scenarios. The people who don't like to be controlled, and it could be anything. It could be, somebody like me. It could be a Harley driver, whatever. It could be anybody that just doesn't want to be controlled. And the ironic thing is that people who are constantly stuck in systems, they tend to grow into this identity of never wanting to be controlled again, because usually the people who are controlling them are unfortunately not capable of managing the people as well as they think they can. That's the reality. You ever had a boss that was terrible? They probably didn't realize they were terrible. All right, let's keep rolling through this. Okay, to increase equitable access to our research grant programs and procurement opportunities for historically Black colleges and universities, minority serving institutions, and small and disadvantaged businesses. Or just call it, here, I'll fix the whole sentence. I'll read it again, but I'll fix it. To increase equitable access to our research grant programs and procurement opportunities for currently poor colleges, or poor students in colleges, or poor universities, or basically poor serving institutions, and small and disadvantaged poor business areas or businesses. That's it. Poor. They don't have money, right? That's who we need to help. You don't have to make race part of it. You don't have to make, historically Black colleges. There's a lot of successful Black people. There's a lot of impoverished Black people. You want to help them? Help all the poor people, okay? We had a meeting with this institution and businesses in summer 2021. These stakeholders reported a lack of awareness of our research grant programs and procurement opportunities and recommended that we establish direct communication with the HBCUs, MSIs, and small and disadvantaged businesses to increase our engagement with these institutions. You gotta wonder to some degree, like, why is the SSA funding these groups? Why aren't they just, which is a research grant program, right? They fund them, it creates research, blah, blah, blah. But why doesn't the SSA hire individuals that can go and study them, that are trained in this? And maybe this is their way of, getting in smoother with that community by funding through these research grant programs and procurement opportunities to them. But do you ever think why they need to give money to these communities to get into them? Okay. All right, to increase our engagement with these institutions, we have, so here's what they're doing. Developed a request for applications designed to increase collaboration by predominantly white research institutions with HBCUs and MSIs by encouraging applicants to engage with HBCUs, MSIs, scholars of color, and people from underserved communities, including people with disabilities. Use community engaged methods as part of their project design, which asks for the inclusion of people from the most affected communities in the development of research design, data collection, analysis, and publishing of findings. Incorporate people of color, people from underserved communities, and or those with lived experiences, i.e. people from the most affected communities as part of the research team. It's a Biden White House. There's a lot that could be fixed there, but it's a Biden White House. All right, number 2, increased outreach to HBCUs in the analyzing relationships between disability rehabilitation and work program. Increase the amount of individual grant funding from 10,000 to 15,000, which, if they're going to fund something grant funded, 10,000 isn't much, 15 isn't much, but I do know 15 is usually more around, it's 15 to 20 usually of what they usually give out to do these grant researches, to make these opportunities more attractive to graduate students, including those from HBCUs. We increase the funding amount to be closer to the amount currently offered by other programs that fund graduate research. This effort may increase diversity among researchers working on our projects, improve collection of research data that are more representative of the population we serve, and ensure that our research dollars are spent in an equitable manner. So they're pushing an identity to fund basically Black, Latino, or just minority-based grad students. You guys know how I feel about that whole situation. You should pick the best. Every race offers the best. Every race offers the best. The best scientists come in every color. The best politicians come in every color. Don't make it, and that's that. I had over $500,000 worth of student loans because I'm a male that is basically Caucasian. Other kids that were not male and Caucasian had like 200,000. It's not fair. And it just makes me feel like, it makes me hate the white politicians that put that law in place, that put that agenda, that took over student loans, because they're the ones who did this to me. It makes me hate people who essentially come from that era, which is directly linear with, of course, the current White House administration. Encourage the 4 retirement and disability research consortium centers to expand their researchers' networks to include scholars from HBCUs. 8 out of 71 fiscal year 2021 RDRC projects involve scholars from HBCUs. We also provided funding for 3 new training programs, one of which is run by the University of Illinois Chicago, a designated MSI. I want to point out something too that a lot of people don't talk about. When you create equity, you end up angering those who have something or could potentially have something. So the only way to really do it is to, take this thing, look at it, do your statistics, and under their model, they're going to boost anybody that doesn't have stuff and reduce the likelihood of people who would have had stuff. And this will create equity, right? The whole idea of it. I think this idea works. They've been using it with academia and scholastic for a very long time, but I don't think it's very effective. I think my generation, frankly, needs to come up with a better model to improve the likelihood of everybody succeeding. I'll be honest with you, I don't think this to me is an old methodology, kind of like when everything collapses and they make loans really cheap. When you make loans really cheap, who are you helping? You're just helping the people who can afford loans to get them in the first place. Like, this is one of the first times they did one of these mega stimulus to everybody. That was a smart move. That was a smart move. We never would have seen that in history. And the weird thing is that that smart move came from a president we all expected wouldn't do a smart move like that. It came from somebody who basically we expected to just back the banks, who then back the loans, who then allow the rich people to get loans out. Right? Right? Think about that. Think about that old world ideology of trickle down theory. If we needed to trickle down, we could just pay it to the bottom and let it trickle up. Right? Because that's what it does. They buy stuff. Poor people buy stuff. They need food, they need clothing, they need resources, they need housing. They buy stuff. If money ends up down here, it ends up back there. If money ends up here, it's sometimes, but I mean, you got to soak the hell out of the top of those trees, gets to the bottom. Sometimes. All right, encourage the forward. Okay, so awarded the grant of $10,000 to Delaware State University, an HBCU, to conduct disability research, developed a list of 34 HBCUs to target the marketing opportunities. So what they're doing as a macro plan that they haven't said yet is they're reaching outside of the SSA to try and fund other people to figure out a solution as to how to make the system better. Okay. We attend monthly interagency work group meetings with the White House Initiative on Advancing Educational Equity, Excellence, and Economic Opportunity through historically Black colleges and universities. At these meetings, we share best practices and information about federal opportunities for HBCUs relating to grants and contracts. We developed an HBCU competitiveness strategy framework plan outlining specific actions to drive HBCU initiatives covering 2 years, 2020 to 2022. We're in the process of developing a new HBCU competitiveness strategy framework plan. This plan included some of the actions in the original plan, as well as new ones to drive HBCU initiatives throughout the agency. Both plans are designed to support our agency's strategic planning efforts. We have rebranded our present with HBCUs in the Washington, Baltimore, and Virginia areas via their Handshake platform for sharing opportunities within the federal government. We partner with the Department of Education to advertise our internship opportunities in their monthly newsletter. So as I read this, what I'm thinking to myself is, once again, me, right? The likelihood of me ever becoming a federal employee that has the capacity to get promotions, that has the capacity to become a judge, extremely low. Because the agenda is to make sure somebody like me does not achieve higher amounts, but rather that somebody else that is not like me, male, that's white, right? Caucasian, so that somebody else other than me can succeed to make me suffer so that I can't get a higher, a higher wage job, so that I can't achieve. And which actually brings me to my next point. One thing that a lot of these nonprofits, which just really pisses me off, a lot of these nonprofits, they sit there and go, we need to do more, we need to do more. But what they don't realize is that the current marketplace of youth, right? When I graduated from law school, nobody wanted to hire me. Not the 2 law firms, it was actually 2.5-ish, but not the places I'd interned with while I was, working in the disability field while in law school. They didn't need me. They didn't need me, right? The big law firms that had the big towers, right? They didn't want me. What they wanted were minority-based females. That's what they wanted, minority-based females. You go to those like big law firms that are part of the bank buildings, the top towers, it's all old white men. And, at this point, a lot of women that are minorities in their 30s and 40s. Nobody wanted to hire me. Which, by the way, is why you are getting all this free information and knowledge and expertise, because I was forced so far down into the bottom that I couldn't find a way up other than to just have my own business. Yeah. Beyond the activities directly related to our 5 focal areas for equity above, we have taken action that will more broadly promote equity. As of October 1st, 2021, we elevated the Office of Civil Rights and Equal Opportunity to an independent office reporting directly to the Office of the Commissioner. This realignment complies with the Elijah E. Cummings Federal Employee Anti-Discrimination Act of 2019. OCREO oversees our Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Accessibility DEIA program, including the Diversity and Inclusion DNI Council and the 8 Special Emphasis Program Advisory Council. Part of OCREO's work involvement contract services to conduct mediation on a national basis and development of an implicit bias training curriculum. This realignment also ensures that the DEIA and equal employment and opportunity matters receive the full support of agency leadership. I will never be able to get a job with the federal government and actually succeed, because all of these programs exist to make sure that somebody else will get promoted above me and beyond me. That's the sad truth of it. That's why you probably will never see me in the federal government working, because unfortunately there's no way for me to succeed there for my hard work. If I worked like I do in the private industry all day, all night, like I do, if I did that in the federal government, I would still not get promoted, which is a problem. But, that's why I'm in this industry. So, that's why I have my own law firm. So you have to understand this whole thing has parts of it. This equity action plan, that's just a slap to my face. And it's also a definitive, it's a very definitive blinking red light as to why they haven't figured out how to fix things over all these years. You have to wonder, why did it take 2022 for them to come up with an action plan? And why does the action plan not specifically go and try to essentially assess poverty as opposed to cultural, race-based existence? All right, barriers to equitable outcomes. Incomplete race and ethnicity data in our record hampers our ability to determine whether our programs are equitably serving our applicants and beneficiaries. If we can improve the collection of race and ethnicity data, it expands our ability to conduct distributional analysis. These analyses evaluate how applicants and beneficiaries are faring under current policies or under potential changes. Most importantly, and this is important, this is good, because if they collect all this data, they're still going to have data to be able to know who's poor, who's not. And that's the most important key modifier here, is to a metric that will actually define how to help poor people, although they're going at it at the wrong angle. Most importantly, improved data will help us determine whether different groups are underrepresented in our programs, provide insight into which programs are particularly important to different communities, and examine whether there are differences in benefit levels based on race and ethnicity. Collecting and analyzing race and ethnicity data provides greater insight into developing potential solutions that will identify and correct inequities in our programs and services and improve service delivery to the diverse groups of people we serve. What they're trying to do here, just to simplify it, is figure out which minorities are struggling. And then they're trying to figure out which geographic area, maybe they are, is suffering the most, and then trying to integrate this program into helping more of them succeed. But then you have to compare that against your essentially, to what degree are they assisting them? Are they looking the other way on certain things that need to be filed? Are they looking the other way on appeal deadlines? Are they looking the other way and just, approving more of them? Like when you look at the whole immigration situation, there's starting to be reports that, people who are immigrants are automatically, for the most part, getting put onto SSI as opposed to other people having to wait years to go through the full medical process. So, I'll have to get more development information on that, but we're starting to see those reports coming in, which is, once again, the double standard. It's not like if somebody's like a minority, they're like, yeah, help the minorities. Then all of a sudden you see this double standard and other minorities aren't getting helped as much are going to be angry. And then other Caucasians who aren't being helped as much, who are sitting there for 3 years and then die as a result of not being able to get disability benefits. Well, their family's not going to be very happy as well, which is why this whole trying to fix things through race never works. And for the most part, it ultimately becomes unconstitutional in its application. From 1936 to 1987, we obtained data on race and ethnicity when people apply for Social Security cards. During this process, people could voluntarily provide us with race and ethnicity information. In 1987, we implemented enumeration at birth, EAB, which allows parents to request a Social Security number when completing forms in the hospital after the child is born. However, hospitals do not collect data on the race and ethnicity of the child, so we have obtained relatively little race and ethnicity data since starting this process. While most enumerations now take place at birth, some enumerations still occur later in life, such as when a person seeking lawful permanent resident status requests a Social Security number, and when a person applies for a replacement Social Security card. Currently, we do not collect race and ethnicity data through these automated enumeration processes. However, if someone goes to one of our field offices to make this request, they have the option to provide their race and ethnicity. As a result of these developments, we have race and ethnicity data for only 59% of living Social Security holders. It's good to collect data. If they want to put it on there and people don't want to answer, that makes sense too. Like if I could go back in time and not put down Caucasian and instead put down, well, I mean, I should have put down Jewish. I would have not had such ridiculous student loans. But if I could have put down anything, I could have put down Native American and ended up, being a professor at an Ivy League school, once again, it's just showing the manipulation potential of this situation. They need to collect the data, but how they use it Now, some people would say it's a slippery slope. You know, if you collect the data, how are you going to use it? But we should collect the data if people are willing to give it. But they should be given the option as to whether or not they want to give it. Okay, here we go. Action and intended impact on barrier. To address the barriers identified above, we will examine and publish 12 tables in the annual statistical supplement providing data by race and ethnicity for Social Security beneficiaries for whom we have more complete data to determine any inequities in our programs. They're going to have to get a heck of a lot more than basically, what was it, 59% of living Social Security holders as to what race they are before they start really publishing that data. They can't have like 3% figure that out and then, hey, just publish it, because they're going to have to collect a lot of it. Number 2, research and statistics note on characteristics of Social Security and SSI beneficiaries. Update on the popular 2015 research and statistics note. Number 3, modeling in the near-term MINT projection model profiles of each race and ethnicity group in 2022 to 2020, 2030, 2015, 2070 with earnings, benefit amounts, income, poverty, health, and wealth. What they're going to actually find out when they do this is that more white males are having less financial success as a result of their plans to create equitable equality, whatever they're calling it this week. So think about this for a moment. If they create a bunch of projects that go ahead and try to push other people up by pulling other people down, or maybe they'll claim, oh, we don't touch them. But whenever you do that, you're obviously creating this. What they'll find is that by 2030, by 2050, by 2070, there will be significant amounts of impoverished whites that outpace impoverished minorities. And you may be thinking, there's no way that is. There's no way. Okay, well, then look at, Native Americans who have special application laws that allow them to own casinos. And extreme wealth that essentially goes into it. I mean, look at Fort Lauderdale. They just set up an entire new casino that's literally a massive guitar that has light shooting out of it. Next one, mint fact sheets on disparities between racial and ethnic groups, including benefit, income, wealth, and poverty. Retirement and Disability Research Consortium working papers, which include a focal area for fiscal year 2022 on disparities by race and ethnicity with 22 research projects. I don't know why the Democrats, through the woke identity, are so, it's a fetish at this point. Race to them, and maybe it's just their way of getting more votes, but race to them is a fetish. It is level. It's almost like an island where you're doing wrong things fetish. That's how bad it is at this point. If you want to help people, you want to be liberal, meat and potatoes, focused on helping the poor. Doesn't matter what skin color they are, focus on helping the poor. Next thing here, explore options for collecting race and ethnicity data when people seek a new or replacement Social Security card online. Determine whether we can expand our data exchange efforts to obtain and share race and ethnicity data for research and statistical purposes within our existing legal framework. Examine statistical methods that may allow us to improve the quality of our program's race and ethnicity data. Conduct ongoing distributional analysis to identify disparities in customer experiences by race, ethnicity, gender, age, and geography, and collaborate with our external stakeholders to address such disparities. They have a fetish with race. There's no way around it at this point. There's a federal woke Democratic Party fetish with race. We could just focus on the poor, but they're not gonna. Next thing, tracking progress and accountability. To measure the outcomes of our proposed actions, we will assess our progress with publishing research and statistical details, detailing the demographic makeup of our program population, to examine inequities in our program participation, thereby exploring changes to our policies and procedures to increase access to our programs. All right, they're just going to track. It's just the same. They're going to check the programs. They're going to track the programs. They're going to produce statistical information. They're going to publish the Excel sheets. That's what they're going to do. Here's the next portion. To hold ourselves accountable, we will report our progress to Congress and the Executive Office of the President. I don't know how accountable that group is, but I think the American people, there should be more of a forum for that. But resume publishing research and statistics, providing race and ethnicity data so that other institutions and stakeholders may conduct their own research to determine whether our programs are equitable. Measure progress in improving program data on race and ethnicity as a part of performance plans for senior executive service employees with oversight for this work. Let me read that one again. That could sneak through. That one's pretty bad. Measure progress in improving program data on race and ethnicity as part of performance plans for senior executive service employees with oversight for this work. So the bottom line is they're going to hold people very accountable at the highest level of offices to collect as much race information as they can and make that a priority. And if they don't do a great job, they're going to fire them. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe we need to hold them accountable to get as much race, minority-based statistical information. But to me, I could see this because I've seen it before. I could see this being used as a way to kick Caucasians out of the federal government. Number 3, conduct routine analysis of available race and ethnicity data within the agency and establish comparisons to appropriate data sets and data sources available elsewhere. Yeah, I see that other one as like you don't match up with our agenda to understand the needs of a minority, and therefore your data collection process is weak, and therefore we're firing you. I could see that as that. I'm pretty worried about a lot of stuff in here, and we're only about halfway through, so. All right, so here we go. Let's keep pushing forward, and then I want to get to specifically the thing I'm really excited about, which is the update on Ukraine, and then we'll do some calls. Barriers. So this is the action plan to identify and address systemic barriers to program participation. This is one where I think they could make the most good in the shortest period of time. Barriers to equitable outcomes. Structural barriers, such as labor market discrimination, result in higher levels of unemployment and lower wages for African American people and Latino people at every level of education. Since Social Security benefits are based on years worked and prior wages, labor market disparities drive differences in Social Security benefits. Data prior to 2010 shows that the benefit levels for white men were considerably larger than the benefit levels for people of color and white women on average. I can tell you why that is. It's because a lot of these white males would hire white males. That was the culture. And, the owners would hire people that were more culturally similar to them. And as a result of that, they would get the packages and they would be the higher up executives, and they would try to, create a company that would do that. And now they're trying to create equity by essentially flipping that whole thing in an extreme, not to help the poor, but to basically create a new culture in the SSA that promotes, that is what it is, that promotes a minority-based existence. Maybe it'll be good, maybe it won't. But I've never known the Democratic Party to do the right thing with data in the long-term sense. Short-term, yes. Long-term, never. Never known them to be able to know when to stop claiming that more should be given to a particular person. I've never known them to be good like that. I've never known the Republicans to be good with trying to even create something like this. Like, Republicans would never create something like this. They wouldn't. Like, don't kid yourself. Like, if Trump was in, they would never create something like this. Wouldn't exist. Don't kid yourself. It just wouldn't exist. But I think the Democrats, and maybe that's just part of it. In order to change something, you have to go to the extreme of it. But I feel like the Democrats would sometimes be more successful with the Republicans if they wouldn't try to make this happen, but rather make this happen to get them to do this. You know what I mean? As opposed to this and then expect this. This just doesn't happen that way. In addition, occupational segregation, the disproportionate representation of people of color and women in jobs of lower pay levels and are less likely to provide benefits, such as employee or employer-sponsored retirement plans, leave people of color and women with less income and fewer retirement resources. Social Security benefits typically make up a larger share of total income for people of color and white women than white men, and there is a greater need for SSI benefits. Further, even though the SSI program provides access to multiple assistance programs, many recipients and their families live at or below the poverty line. I'm surprised that they didn't put in here the detail about women usually having to quit work earlier to take care of elderly parents. That would have been a good part. That would have been a good moment to enter in that information. The complexity of our SSI program, driven in part by legislative, regulatory, and sub-regulatory requirements, can create burdens for program applicants. This is also true for our frontline employees who assist applicants and claimants in completing forms and review processes. Many of our customers, particularly those from populations facing barriers, cannot conduct business with us online. Often this is due to limited access to technology, housing insecurity, lack of credit history, difficulty understanding the procedures to establish online accounts, or reliance on third parties for assistance. I've got a great solution. When you give out these free phones, free government phones, give them actual internet capability. Make the application process simple and easy through a cell phone. Have little things pop up to educate people on the phone, right? I mean, the phone companies aren't going to like that if poor people are getting internet. But at the same time, if you want to fix this, you want to get more poor people using a cell phone to be able to access these programs. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. To better address the administrative burdens facing our applicants, we want to take action to ensure these applicants are receiving benefits for which they qualify. In particular, the length and complexity of the SSI application can seem daunting for many applicants. Further, recipients who receive SSI benefits are required to continually report their earnings to us. Recipients can report, which is their own fault, That constant earnings thing, that would be a heck of a lot less administrative function there if they would just approve the SSI Restoration Act. That's their own fault. And Biden campaigned specifically on passing the SSI Restoration Act. That's their own damn fault there. Recipients can report their earnings through multiple avenues, calling a regular local field office, using the automated toll-free SSI telephone wage reporting service, the free SSI mobile wage reporting smartphone app, or the My Social Security online wage reporting tool. Many still may find this reporting requirement difficult. Yeah, because homeless people, when you give them a free phone, a lot of them unfortunately sell it for drugs, but a lot of them also have it and they can't get enough internet. That's the reality. We also understand that many applicants cannot access our online or telephone services and have limited ability to make an appointment. And you don't have to give them free internet in total. You could just give them like some internet, and then for anything that's like government website, it's free. It's automatic. You can limit it like that if you wanted the phone companies to not be so hurt about the whole thing. You could do that. All right, let me read that again. We also understand that many applicants cannot access our online or telephone services and have limited ability to make an appointment due to housing insecurity or medical reasons. Well, the real reason is that you give them phones, these homeless people, that have limited minutes on it when you call the SSA. And then they have to sit on the phone with the SSA waiting for 45 minutes to an hour and a half. And then they just used up all of their minutes to go ahead and basically access the Social Security Administration. Right. Slatherings. The phones are worthless. They refuse to update them. I know. I saw one today. No, Wednesday, the guy handed me the phone. It was hard. I didn't know how, like literally it worked. It was so different from my iPhone that it was just, and when you click the buttons, everything takes forever to load. It was just a really terrible experience. Oh, Jane Doe, I'm sorry I'm buffering. So sorry. Anyways, here we go. Let me keep rolling through this so I can get this thing done. All right, let's go through this. They may have experienced even greater difficulty reaching us during the COVID-19 pandemic, thereby impacting their participation in our program. Our actuaries found that the number of SSI applications in 2021 was about 25 to 30% lower than pre-pandemic levels in 2019. Well, that's also because, let's call it like it is, like you guys weren't in office. You know what I mean? And you sure as hell were not picking up the phone as much as you normally would. Further, during the COVID-19 pandemic, we have been providing limited in-person services to people with appointments to address critical needs. Given the situation, this likely creates additional barriers for some. Yeah, obviously. Okay, cool. They acknowledge it, but COVID-19 was special, so it makes sense that they had to do that. But still, the phone lines, they should have a lot more people on phone lines. Oh, Jane Doe, you're the one with the free internet. Yeah, it's the free internet problem. It's not good. They could work with Elon and get everybody set up so that everybody could access to some degree internet throughout the entire United States, Alaska, Hawaii, and the possessions. They could do that. They could work that deal. That would be for the American people. Action and intended impact on barriers. Let me see how much we have left to go because I'm starting to lose my voice here. All right, I'm going to read through basically the summary parts of these specific things to just kind of skip through because otherwise it will take us another 30 minutes. We're going to now go to the Ensuring Equitable Service for Unrepresented Claimants. Barriers to equitable outcomes. The DI and SSI programs provide benefits to claimants who cannot work because they have a medical condition that is expected to last at least 1 year or result in death. In determining whether a claimant is eligible for disability benefits, we, the disability examiners, and then they list a bunch of them, rely on medical evidence, work history information, and testimony from the claimant and any other relevant sources, third party, medical expert, vocational expert, etc., academia evidence. While claimants can choose to appoint an attorney or not attorney representative at any point in the disability application process, many do not. For example, some claimants may be reluctant to pay a portion of their awarded back pay benefits to a representative. They may not understand how a representative could assist them in the application process, or they may not have access to free or low-cost legal services, to name a few. However, research shows that just so you guys know, like when it comes to disability claims, most legal aids don't do any of that stuff. And the reason why is that they don't have enough people to handle it. They can't handle the appeals for these people. And when they sign somebody up, that person has the expectation that that attorney working free legal services is going to continue to assist them throughout the process. They don't have the funding to do that. And then they went to the attorneys and said, can you fund our legal services to make, and we were like, no, absolutely not. You need to go to the American people and have them fund that. You can't just go to the attorneys and expect us to pay for the needs of society when it comes to legal needs. That one failed real quick. However, research shows that having a representative during the disability appeals process increases the possibility of being awarded benefits. For instance, a Government Accountability Office report found that claimants who had a representative at the hearing level were granted disability benefits at a rate nearly 3 times as high as applicants who did not have a representative. Yeah, well, let me explain the basic of that. The number one reason that is that those are rocket dockets. They go in front of the judge. They're in front of the judge for 15 to 20 minutes usually. The judge asks them some questions. They don't know what to say. They butcher their testimony. They say all these things that are going to hurt their claim. Judge thanks them. They leave. It's done. There's no cross-examination. Like if you go do one of these disability hearings without an attorney, like what'd you expect? What'd you expect? You're in a federal hearing, you know. Like, anyways, now let's read more how they're going to magically fix this. Representatives can obtain the necessary evidence. They can also request that we assist in the development of medical evidence. We do this by sending the claimant to an examination with one of our medical experts. This ensures that the claimant's file is as complete as possible. Despite our efforts to inform claimants about their right to representation after their application has been denied at the initial reconsideration and hearing level, our data shows that in the 2020, 34% of claimants were unrepresented at the reconsideration level, and 23% of claimants were unrepresented at the hearing level. A closer look at the data at the hearing level shows that in 2020, nearly 62.5% dismissals were for cases where the claimant did not have a representative. We note that our data did not capture the specific reasons these cases were dismissed at the hearing level, which would have been super important. Let me read that again. We note that our data did not capture the specific reasons these cases were dismissed at the hearing level. It didn't collect whether or not it was a homeless person who couldn't go physically get there. It didn't, have specific reasons if the person wanted to withdraw but didn't know how to. Didn't have specific reasons, like didn't show up or just, did whatever. Didn't have reasons on why the person, basically went there, got into a fight with the judge because the person had no lawyer to calm them down and explain to them how it worked. It didn't go into that, and that's crucial. So I'm hoping they do start to get those specific reasons. We are also concerned that while evidence indicates that African American people are more likely to have a disability, they are less likely to be approved for disability benefits than white people. It is unclear whether a lack of representation is a contributing factor. We are committed to evaluating and improving our internal process to increase equitable services to unrepresented claimants in the disability application process. I have not found that actually to be true. I have more African American claimants than I have of any other race in America, and more of my African American claimants get approved than the other claimants of a different race. So that could be true on a much larger scale. It's not so much true for my situation. So, but and there's all these factors. You don't know how many of these individuals are drug addicts versus alcohol users versus tobacco. Tobacco is their new big thing. Like if you're smoking, they don't want to approve the claim. There are judges that will not approve you if you're utilizing tobacco-based products, if you're smoking. So there could be a bunch of Caucasian claimants that are alcoholics or whatever. And then as a result of that, you would see a tendency statistically away from them being approved because they're abusing alcohol, which makes their impairment worse as a result of their impairment not being as severe as it necessarily would be, because the alcohol puts them into severe to extreme category as opposed to not using alcohol. They're only in the mild to moderate category or the moderate to severe category. You never know. You never know. And that's part of this thing that I really like, is that they're going to collect the data. Because, we're going to learn a lot of stuff. And the whole race thing, we need that data too. But we're going to learn a lot of stuff from this data that we had no idea was even relevant or existed. The conclusions will be coming out of this that we didn't even realize. So it is a good thing. As a whole, this, which took the Democratic Party, the Democrats, it took them to say, we need to start learning more about our own program, largest agency. Next thing, action and intended impact on barrier. To address the barriers identified above, we will evaluate the impact of internal processes on outcomes for unrepresented claimants in the disability application process by analyzing existing program data and external data to identify and examine sources of any potential bias in the disability application process. All right, we already went over these. They've already stated them multiple times before. work with the National Organization of Social Security Claimants Representatives, a specialized bar association for attorneys and advocates, and the National Association of Disability Representatives, a professional organization of the Social Security, blah, blah, blah. They're going to work with they're going to work with NOSCR and the other groups that exist. Explore collaboration with pro bono and low-cost legal service groups near our field offices and hearing offices to increase representation at earlier stages in the disability application process. They already have that. That's the SOAR program. Well, the SOAR program, it's like a 2-day thing, and then they certify you to file people for disability benefits. It's not enough. I get a lot of claims from SOAR people because when it comes to appeal time in the hearing, they don't have the expertise and knowledge. And it's not fair to expect them to. You got to make their life this when it's not their job. There is that. I mean, certify them to know more about it. Sure, that's a good thing. Get the application process done. Sure, that's a good thing. But then have them continue and do everything else beyond it. Hey, then we start to ask a lot of people. Tracking progress and accountability to measure the outcomes of our proposed actions. We will track the percentage of claimant obtaining representation on all levels, blah, blah, blah. Evaluate the sufficiency of the maximum fee that representatives receive under the fee agreement process to incentivize representatives of more disability program to basically get attorneys to represent SSI applicants. Look, you want attorneys to represent SSI applicants? Let me tell you what you need to fix it. And I hope the commissioner watches this video. Number one, when it comes to SSI people, there's this little rule where sometimes the attorney has to go and collect the fee from that claimant. You got to get rid of that. Just make it the same as the SSDI one. Have it so that the SSA backs the attorney for paying them when they are due a fee. No collecting it from the claimant spiel backs the attorney, because then the attorney has to use a collection agency against that SSI claimant, which is never fun, and it should never be like that to begin with. If the SSA holds the money to begin with and they got to pay them the 25% back pay, then guess what? Hold on to the money and pay the attorney directly. There's another thing too. Raise the $6,000 to $10,000. Just begin that bar. Begin that. And then every year, raise it up from there. There's another thing. Raise the 25% up to 33%. Here's another thing. Get rid of the in-kind support maintenance 1/3 reduction rule. All of these SSI people are getting help from somebody unless they're flat out homeless, living in the woods, away from people. All of them are. You're taking 1/3 away from their back pay, which means you're taking 1/3 away from that attorney's potential fee for every single month. You fix those, attorneys are going to represent them for SSI. I hope the commissioner sees this. She'll hopefully learn significant amounts from somebody who's directly practicing within the arena known as Social Security disability law. Last one, increase the percentage of represented claimants at all levels of the disability application process. So they want claimants to be represented. And the reason why is represented claimants more likely to be found disabled. And here's the logic. Not just that they want more to be found disabled. They want more of those who are actually truly disabled to have a fair shot at being found disabled. To hold ourselves accountable, we will report to blah, 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 Congress, yada, yada, all the same jazz. Okay. Next section, and we're coming down to, we got one more section after this, and then I'm going to get my update on Ukraine, which I'm really excited about. I didn't get a chance to catch up with him before to talk about what's going on with Ukraine, little updates, like a little secret pre-meeting or whatever. But which I always enjoy, just getting updates what's going on. But we're going to get like the full-on what's going on. So let's do these last two. I'll do a summarized version. This is about increased gender equity and equality. Here's the bottom line. I'm just going to skip this part. They're going to go ahead and make it so that you can more easily, without having to prove physical changes and stuff like that, mark that you are a different gender, whether you're male, you're female, or you're an X gender. That's it. Okay. It makes it easier basically for people who do not identify as binary to go ahead and express themselves, and thereby create in the market an understanding of people to appreciate them more. Little known fact that you guys may not know about me. When I was, I think in college, I tried to, and I did set up a website and I think trademark for gay entertainment television. And what I wanted to do was create a television channel specifically for those in the LGBT community, which they didn't have Q then or plus then or any of those addition things that were added on time. But I thought it was fair and I thought it was a nice thing. And bottom line was I wanted them to go ahead and succeed and have that as their particular thing. I'm not a gay individual myself, but I thought that was a good idea as somebody who's in the media industry. That website that I set up got hacked pretty much every 2 weeks. It was hacked by basically it was Muslim-based groups. They put up flags and dogs peeing on them and things like that. It was every couple of weeks it got hacked. So I just didn't have the resources to constantly stay on top of it, and I just didn't have the time to push that entity. But I wanted them to have a voice, and the reason why is that way you have less of this, brutal justice in Texas of people going after people that are gay. At some point, Americans are going to realize that in order to be happy, you just have to not hate people. We're getting there. It's taken a while, but the reality is, if you leave people alone and let them be happy, most likely they'll leave you alone. You can be happy, unless you're in a homeowners association and you live next to Karen. Then you're on your own, buddy. You're on your own. You're on your own. All right, next thing. All right, so we're going to skip that portion and go to the next thing. All right, action plan to increase equitable access to our research grants and procurement opportunities for historically black colleges and universities, minority serving institutions, and small disadvantaged businesses. You guys already know where I stand on this. I'll just read through it real quick. Barrier to equitable outcomes. Our data indicates that our research grants and procurement opportunities are reaching a very limited number of historically black colleges and universities, minority serving institutions, and small disadvantaged businesses. For example, from 2003 to the present, we have awarded almost $369 million in research contracts to 10 contracting organizations. Of these, only one is a small and disadvantaged business and was awarded a contract of just over $1 million. During the same period, research grants have been awarded to 50 different institutions, of which only one of the primary grantees was an HBCU and one sub-grantee was based at an MSI. Look, guys, I would be great to be a disadvantaged business that they could fund to ask me questions about what I've noticed, how things work. They wouldn't have to pay me $1 million. They wouldn't. I'd be much happier with a small amount, but they won't, because I don't fit the bill. And the bill is historically black colleges and minority serving institutions. Next thing on here, we held conversations with stakeholders to learn about potential barriers in the acquisition process of HBCUs, MSIs, and small disadvantaged businesses. They discussed the lack of our outreach to these institutions, blah, blah, blah. We already know that. They didn't get out to the people, so now the SSA is working to create people who can reach out more. They're going to research more. To address the barriers identified above, we will develop equity-based guidelines to increase access to and encourage participation in grant opportunities by, we already read this. This is all the same that was in the summary stuff before. Draft our request for applications to encourage the Retirement and Disability Research Consortium to partner with HBCUs. We already went through all this. The hub zone thing, we already talked about that. The Office of Civil Rights, Equal Opportunity, establish a framework process to ensure grant recipients of federal funds are compliant with anti-discrimination civil rights provisions and all procurement solicitations and words, including the appropriate terms and conditions required to implicit law or executive order applicable to the acquisition. Just a bunch of fancy yada yada. All right, so I want to go ahead and basically say something real quick here. I think the biggest thing that nobody ever talks about with the race issue here is that whichever group, I mean, you can see it, it's obvious, whichever group is the majority, right, in a nation, whether it's a religion or it's a race or whatever, they dictate the preference or tendencies of the laws. Right? Obviously, there's a preference or tendency towards Christians in America. Obviously, there's a preference or tendency to white Americans in America. Because whatever group, look, if you go to China, obviously the Chinese of Asian descent, genetic descent, and the religions that they have dictate the preference of what the laws will be in that particular country. You go to Africa, obviously now after the apartheid and all those things, African Americans, those who are of African descent, who have the voting power, which are obviously individuals who are not white, even though there's a significant amount of white individuals in South America, those individuals will dictate the preference of the laws. And what's happening is all these nations are kicking out the queen, whether it's the Caribbean island nations or whatever. But the bottom line is they're dictating what the preference is. And I think what this is trying to achieve is a better understanding of how the laws discriminate, even if not on their face, against minority-based groups or minority-based religions or minority-based something that does not have the same preference or a way to nullify out a particular preference in the nation. So I think realistically, this is what they're trying to achieve with this. They would be more successful in creating equality for all and lifting up the poor than trying to specifically target Black individuals, Latino individuals, Asian individuals, Indian individuals, etc., Asian individuals. Did any of you notice that they did not reference in this Indians? Did any of you notice that they did not reference Asians? Or maybe they did a little bit. Did you notice that they didn't reference certain, race-based groups? Why was that? Why does this document have preference? Is it that they're automatically assuming that particular races are impoverished? Right? You know what I mean? That's what we're getting into. So you take this document one step beyond where it is in a hypothetical, theoretical landscape of understanding. And you start to realize there's ethical dilemmas beyond what they've written here that are actually very harmful towards creating a thriving society. So, yeah. But and I see just some of the notes. Pacific Islanders, yeah, it's another group. Pacific Islanders, extremely impoverished group. A lot of them are on SSI. One of my favorite musicians who passed away, same gig. Maybe you've heard him. He had a ukulele. Did some beautiful music. They had a beautiful, event for him when he passed away, where they went out into the ocean. Oz. I'm sure you guys know him. And let's see what else. BLM has affected the system. Yeah, sure. BLM, the whole idea behind BLM was so that people respected the worth of a Black American's life on equivalent status of that of other races, Asian, white, Latino, etc. And then it got warped in politics, and there was an army of these other people that wore all black, right? But were usually white, which was always interesting, that were misinterpreting that system. Here's the thing about BLM and these other things. What's important is that to earn the respect of another person, even if it's race-based, right? To earn the respect of another person. So let's say I was Asian, okay? And let's say somebody else was Latino, and that Latino person had no knowledge, or maybe they did, but didn't matter. They had no preference of whether the Asian individual would be a good thing or a bad thing for being in their life, in their community. In order for another person to respect you and your race and who you are and what you're about, because those people are like, I don't see color, I'm colorblind to that. That's bullshit. That's total BS. It's always been BS. Everybody acknowledges that somebody is different. We need to normalize that different is okay. That's the big thing here. So what happens is this: when we look at, right, that Latino person, looking at that Asian person, me in this case, then what we have to think about is that Latino person going to respect that Asian person? Well, if that Asian person helps that Latino person, is nice to that Latino person, gives that Latino person, freedom and space, and is kind, then that earned relationship, that earned trust boosts the races combining with each other in a positive manner. The problem with BLM is that it was originally the idea of promoting the worth of African Americans, and what it became was something that really hurt the African American people because it became a violent, aggressive, forceful thing. And forcing one race or one group or one religion to respect somebody else never works. It's never worked. There's been entire religious wars, Lionhearts, that have fought over Holy Lands just because of their belief that somebody, didn't treat their ego the way it should have been treated. And that's the problem with the whole idea of BLM, of what it is now. It started off okay, is that in order for races and religions and people to respect each other, they have to be kind to each other. And in order for them to, like each other and lift each other up, to intercommunicate, to have children with each other, they have to respect each other through good deeds to each other. It has to be earned. It has to be earned through your parents doing good things for other people, through you doing good things for other people. It has to be earned. It can never be forced. Otherwise, you end up with riots and it all fails. That's what happened. It all failed. It's like the whole Will Smith thing with the slap, right? Will Smith, to me, is one of the greatest actors I've ever seen. I grew up watching him in A Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And if you ever get a chance to look at, essentially Carlson versus Will in that whole dichotomy there, amazing show. Still valid today because we still haven't been able to fix it because they're trying to make this stuff fit together in the wrong way. It has to be a person-to-person ownership of them trying to be the best person they can so that what their race is a positive to the other person who might not be the same race or religion or whatever. That's how it works. Right? It's the bottom line. I've never seen it work another way. Anyways, guys, I want to go ahead and basically pop over to the next thing, which I'm really excited about. I've got a buddy. He's a security expert, and he basically knows essentially about what's going on over in Ukraine, and it's so incredibly important. Let me go ahead and check in with him right now real quick. 1 second. Hold on. Let me go ahead and bring it up, and we'll begin the process of basically going through and talking about what's going on in Ukraine, which is so incredibly important to us because the whole Russia thing is heating up even more, and nuclear war keeps popping up on the search results of these legacy places, the news stations, much more often. So let me see if I can reach him real quick and begin the process of it. So I've got him ringing, and we're going to go ahead and see if we can get him on the phone real quick. And it's a little bit later than I thought, but let me see if I can get him on the phone. Oh, I'm hoping I can get him. Oh no, I might not be able to get him. If we can't, we're going to do a special show just with him in it. I'm going to try and call him again. But if I can't get him tonight, I am literally going to go ahead and do a special show just with him to do it because that's actually one of my favorite parts of doing this big show. So let me try and get him again. I really look forward to it too because I lose my voice kind of by the end of it. He pops in and kind of lifts it all up again. So let me see if I can get him on the phone real quick. If I can't, no worries, no biggie. But I'll probably do a show with him. I'm actually working on a nuclear trailer to help people understand how they should prepare. And he's going to be a key person in helping me actually create that. So I'm really excited about that too. Let me see if I can get him on the phone. It's later than usual. Usually I call him around 9, but we're still going to do some phone calls. No. All right. So no biggie. We're going to do a special show with him because I know a lot of you guys always really, really, really appreciate the update on Ukraine. In fact, some of the stuff he tells us isn't even on the news until the next morning. I don't know if you noticed that. Those are some of those things. All right. So guys, I'm going to go ahead and take phone calls now. I know it's a little bit late. Let me see real quick. And let's get this ball rolling. Here we go. Some phone calls. Hi, this is Attorney Walter Hnot. We are live on YouTube. Please remember to use a fake name. Would you like me to answer a specific question, or would you like me to go ahead and run hearing questions with you?
I'd like to actually say my question. I've been listening to you actually outside this entire time.
Oh, wow.
Sorry if it's loud. Hold on. I'm going to try to get out of the area.
Yeah.
So it'll be a little less loud because I'm in a main street. Okay, thank you for taking my call, attorney. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for helping everybody who really, we actually, all of us who get Social Security or trying to get Social Security really are grateful and so appreciative to have you help all of us. Now I'm going to get to my question. I have a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
My first question is, I recently received paperwork for a CDR. And I was caught off guard, so I didn't know exactly for what conditions I was approved to get disability under. Uh-huh. So I tried to contact the Social Security people and find out what was my conditions that they approved me under.
Yeah. But
they're not willing to let me know what it is. I spoke to 8 different Social Security people over the phone because at that time they were closed, and every single one of them basically told me that I basically don't even have a right to know.
You
so
do.
I just was wondering.
You do.
Exactly, that's what I told them. But according to them, I don't. And I was really bad with that. I was actually so upset. I didn't even know what to do because it was like I couldn't believe that they're sitting on the other end telling me that I basically don't have a right to know. And so at this point, I was wondering how can I go about? At this point, it's too late. I already submitted my paperwork. It's done because I only had a limited amount of time, 3 weeks, to submit everything. But for the future, I still would like to know how can I find out under what diagnoses I've been approved under. So for the future, in case I have any other reviews or anything, I know exactly, how to answer the questions. And when they're asking me, for instance, how's your condition improved? Then I will know exactly what they're referring to. Because I applied under several conditions. I really don't know under what they really approved me under.
So let me ask you this real quick. Were you approved via a hearing, or were you approved at the DDS levels?
At the DDS office.
Okay, so what you're going to want to do is you're going to contact the regional field office and ask for them to go ahead and assist you with obtaining a copy of what is called the DDE, the Disability Determination Explanation. That's the full report, the DDE, Disability Determination Explanation. That's the full report created by DDS, which includes the MCPC notes, the medical consultant's notes, as to why you were disabled, what they liked, what they didn't like, what listings they considered, all that stuff. Now, for another person that might be listening, if you were found disabled at the hearing level, just obtain a copy of your partially favorable or fully favorable letter from the judge. And at the end of it, it will basically give a summary as to your impairments that they used to find you disabled. And at the beginning of the analysis, it'll give you all the impairments that they looked at in total. But so do you know how to look up the regional field office?
I don't know what a regional field office, but what I did is I first initially contacted the main Social Security number. Then they told me I have to call my basically the office that's nearest to my town, the one that basically I went to and I applied to originally. So basically it's like 4 miles away from my house. So I called that specific Social Security, which was basically my local Social Security office. And I spoke to I called 8 different times in like a week. I spoke to 8 different people and nobody was willing to help me. Nobody gave me a straight answer. It was so horrible. I couldn't believe that I'm dealing with these people so obnoxious, so rude, so unhelpful. And I felt like I'm in like a twilight zone. It was horrible. So that's the office that I spoke to, which was basically the office that I had originally applied to, which was my local office. Is that what the office that you're talking about?
No. So all the local field offices have a boss office, and that boss office is called the regional office. So like the Gatlin Ave Orlando field office, their boss office is the Georgia regional office. And the Georgia regional office is there to correct the errors of the local field office. So what you want to do is reach out to 2 groups. One, the regional field office. So you can look that up online based on region. And remember, it might not be in your state, but it's probably really close to it. And then number 2, and you can get the contact information online by searching it in Google or DuckDuckGo. And number 2, you want to go ahead and reach out to the Office of Inspector General. They have an area to report fraud, and honestly, restriction of your ability to have access to your documentation through the SSA is a form of fraud. So I would reach out to them and make a formal complaint, because you should be able to get access to what impairments you were found disabled with. So I would reach out to those 2 groups. The regional field office will be able to get you the documentation, or will get on the case of the local field office to then give it to you. And the Office of Inspector General, they're going to want to know if they're restricting your ability to get your basic documents.
Okay, so can you please I was quickly able to, like I said, I'm in the street right now, and I've been listening to you. I've been walking in the street this entire time. I was quickly able to write down the abbreviations for the 2 documents you told me, but I didn't really get exactly the name. So the DDE stands for
Disability Determination Explanation.
Okay, and the other one, which is the MCPC.
Oh, the MCPC is just the medical consultant notes. That you don't really need to know. It'll just be in the DDE document. The other one you need to know for people who were found disabled at the hearing office level is the fully favorable or partially favorable ALJ brief. ALJ brief, the partially favorable or fully favorable ALJ brief.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. Yes, and I will totally call, and I will also place a complaint because they really made me upset, and they were so unhelpful, which I could have, maybe had my diagnosis and been able to answer the questions better. I did have one other question. I have been diagnosed with general anxiety disorder and depression and multiple other psych issues. So I do a lot of times doubt myself when I do things. I get really worried. I get really worked up. So after sorry, I'm stuttering. After I filled out this, it was actually one of the forms you went over recently, Form 454. After I went over that form, I handed it in and I completed it. I'm now doubting whether or not I answered one of the questions okay, which is basically at the end it's like question 9C, which is basically asking if you have any difficulty with any of the following, which is tasks that you can do. I basically get really nervous and anxious when I drive, so I try to avoid driving as much as possible because it gives me major anxiety. So when it asked me if I have any difficulties with driving, I said I avoid driving as much as possible, and I take medical transportation to all my doctor's appointments. Then I handed it in, and now I regret it. And I'm like, well, I should have written in there that I do drive sometimes. Do you think that I answered it okay? Or I'm just overreacting?
I would get a 795 form and go into why you have difficulty driving, like, when it comes to the speed of the vehicle, interacting with blinking lights, having to make quick decisions, having to interact with cars that are near proximity, having to have others in the vehicle causes you anxiety about being able to safely transport. I would get a 795 form. It's just, you could go to Google or DuckDuckGo and just type in SSA 795 and submit a statement of claimant update.
Saying what? That specifying that I just get why I get anxiety and that I do drive sometimes.
So the best way, when I work on testimony with claimants for hearings when it comes to driving, because let's say that you used to be a van driver for delivering orange juice, whatever, it doesn't matter, but you used to deliver stuff, and now you're disabled and you can't drive as well as you used to. So what I like to do is say, okay, step 1, what happens when you have to think about going someplace? Step 2, what happens when you have to get into the vehicle? Step 3, what happens when you have to back out of a spot? Step 4, what happens when you have to look forward and drive forward? Step 5, are you able to handle local city-based traffic? Are you able to handle larger highway-based traffic? Then we go into what about highway speeds? Are you able to go ahead and utilize that? Do you have any neck limitations when it comes to moving your head? Are you able to have other people in the vehicle with you? Are you able to go ahead and get the seat in a proper way that allows your body to be comfortable enough to drive for more than 15, 20 minutes? Or are you limited the amount of time that you have to, be in that seat and have to get out after so many miles to go ahead and stretch?
Attorney, my prior job had nothing to do with driving at all. So I'm just wondering the fact that I said I avoid driving as much as possible, and I do sometimes drive. Is that still sufficient?
I would have done it differently. Okay, let me give you another example. Because remember, when I answer these questions, I try and do it generally for people with physical and mental impairments. Sure. Let me just do the mental one. So when it comes to your limitation with driving, anxiety is the number one limitation. Is that correct?
Sure.
Okay.
Correct. That's it. Yes.
Okay. So when it comes to anxiety, things for driving that usually pop up, somebody who's always afraid of being late, not arriving on time, somebody who is afraid of having to leave in the first place and gets very anxious about it, somebody who is afraid of potentially getting attacked or having somebody interact with them, or a police officer or somebody that's a law enforcement pull them over and interact with them. Another example, people are anxious, something might break in the car that you don't know how to fix, and then you wouldn't have a vehicle thereafter. Not being able to brake in time is another thing that pops up. Another thing is not being able to go ahead and access a parking spot that you normally use, or be able to access the building in a safe way. Those are examples of anxiety affecting your ability to drive. So you want to think about what limits you from getting from point A to point B with a vehicle.
Okay. All right. There is no issue about, I didn't have to, the fact that I wrote that basically I avoid driving as much as possible. Does that still mean that I do drive sometimes, correct? Just want to clarify that part.
Yeah, because they're going to assume that you still utilize the vehicle to get to the medical appointments.
No, I wrote I use medical transportation to get to those appointments.
Did you specifically state that's for all medical appointments?
No, I just said I use medical transportation to get to my medical appointments. Yeah.
And then when it comes to that too, they're going to be wondering: are you using Medicaid? Are you not using Medicaid? Are you using a third party? So that's another thing.
Yeah.
They don't always. So there are in some states ambulance groups that will pick you up. There's Medicaid transport. There's using a buddy to drive you. So it's just little clarification things are always important. But if it's something that's bothering you, I would grab a 795 form, just kind of outline a little bit more with bullet points exactly why you're limited.
Okay, well, thank you so much for everything, answering all my questions. Once again, very grateful to have you, very grateful for all your videos and for all your help. Thank you again, sir.
Thank you. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Yes, good, sir. Thank you very much. Have a lovely night. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Okay, we missed one. Let me pop over here real quick. Let me go here. Okay, perfect. We're going to do this one. Let's see what we got here. Okay, let me see if I can get this person on the phone real quick, and then we'll go ahead and begin the process. I'll do a couple more calls, and then we'll basically call it a night because it is 10:09. I actually have to go to the post office. I went there for the past 2 nights to the Merritt Island USPS, and the machine's broke. Hi, this is Attorney Walter Hnot. You are live on YouTube right now. Remember to use a fake name throughout this process. Also, would you like me to answer a specific question, or would you like me to go ahead and run hearing questions with you? And just remember, you've got to go ahead and mute the TV or whatever the thing is in the background. How can I help you?
Yeah, let me mute myself here.
Perfect.
You got me there?
Yes, good sir.
Okay, yeah. I just wanted to thank you for the information. I want to share a little bit of my story. Was that I applied for SSDI in September of 2015.
Sure.
And I was had a pulmonary embolism that really messed me up. So one of the things was I was immediately classified as disabled, and I was barely working, maybe a few hours a day. But and then I made $50 too much for 1 month or 2 months in that 1 year waiting period.
Yep.
And so they denied me. And I appealed, and they lost my file.
Ugh, really?
And I had to appeal again to reconstruct the file. And it was lost again, so they finally ended up sending it to a different office, and then COVID hits. Well, first there was then I was denied a second time.
Okay.
And I appealed that, and I went to the appeals council. A year later, this is in 2019, so the appeals council says, we're sending this back to the administrative law judge to review this again because we cannot find all the records.
Mm-hmm.
So they send it back to her, and COVID hits. And it's sitting in her desk in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
And she retires.
Oh, man. That happened with a lot of the judges, though. That did happen. But, man, you got a rough situation. Jeez.
So she retires, and then So I'm doing the legwork of finding out what's going on with my case, and I have senators and everybody else trying to find out this information. And I finally get an answer. It was in December of 21, saying, "Oh, we assign this to a new judge." I finally get a hearing in January, and then in March, I get a decision saying I get 100% disability.
Okay.
From day one.
Sure.
But then you have that 6-month wait. And thank you for one of the last for one of your other podcasts. I learned now I have a 3-month waiting period to get 3 months of back pay, and then wait another 6 months, then I get another 3 months of back pay, and then I wait another 6 months after that, and I get another 6 months worth of back pay.
Well, you get the full amount at that point. Yeah, you get the for SSI you get 3 months worth, and you wait 6 months, and you get 3 months worth, and you wait 6 months, and you get all of it that's remaining. Yeah.
So it's basically almost a year and a half after I even get anything, I'm on 6 years down the road.
Well, just find something that is of high value that equates to the amount that is remaining at the SSA to be dispersed to you. Find something of value that's not a countable asset that you're allowed to have on SSI, and basically go ahead and request an emergency release of funds to purchase that item. They'll release the funds to you, one-time gig. They'll release all the funds. You get all the funds, and then you don't have to deal with the whole 6 month thing.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And I just have to prove, and because and again, I just want to thank you for the information, because I've been so in the blind with this, and you're just a valuable resource of information. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely, good sir. No problem. It's called emergency release of funds, and if you have additional questions, you can always reach out. But good sir, I'm gonna head off to USPS tonight to mail off a bunch of initials and stuff. But I'll catch you later, and you have a wonderful, wonderful night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye. So guys, I'm going to actually end the show there. I went longer than I thought. I wanted to go through the entire equity plan in detail. I feel like I did that. We didn't go throughout every single line of it, but I feel like we nailed the major parts of it. Obviously, there's things for improvement. I think there are some things that are absolutely crucial and amazing about it that I fully support President Biden with and Commissioner Kijikazi. But then there's other things in here that I feel like kind of like old world thinking about how they attack racism to end it. And, there's a better way to do it. I'll make a video about how I think we should go forward about doing it. But just to put an idea in your head, when I was in New Jersey, I always noticed the culture is a little bit different than there and than in Florida. And some of it's very old worldy up there. And when you look at essentially kids, they don't have that connection, that racial tension. That's somewhere learned throughout, whether it's academia, being raised by the family, whatever. The thing that I think is crucial here is to not just study the Social Security benefit aspect of it, but to also look into pre-Social Security relevance periods as to why kids have these difficulties. And and if the lightest touch they can have to get the most information that's relevant is always advisable, because obviously with children of most relevance, of most importance, is their ability to actually learn without being affected by an external source trying to study them. But anyways, guys, I will catch you a little bit later. I hope all's well. Have a wonderful, wonderful night, and we will go from there. And we're going to be doing a special Ukraine update basically throughout the week at some point, because I really enjoy that aspect of this whole thing. So anyways, I'll catch you later. Have a wonderful night. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for hanging out. We'll go from there. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.